Thank you for joining me on this episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. In today's episode, I'm going to interview Brian Dondlinger, the co founder and CEO of Orion Motors. Brian has some super duper thoughtful insights on his business, and I think you're going to find them really interesting.
We founded this business, and when I say we, it's really my wife and I, and we both have long careers in product development. Not only has my career been vehicles, and so is my passion and my hobby. So, I worked for over 20 years in automotive engineering, but I race team for about 12 years. So design, built, and race cars. I love motorcycles as well, and cars and trucks and getting outdoors. Just really have a passion around vehicles. And so when it came time for us to decide what to do, we'd want to start our own business for a really long time. It was kind of a natural for us to continue in that vehicle realm. So we looked at it and we said, what kind of business can we do around vehicles? And we said, we don't really want to be necessarily a race shop or a service business. We want to be a manufacturer, right? We have a lot of passion around product development as well. And we want to design and manufacture and bring these to market. And we want to make them in volume to keep the cost down so they can be more affordable to our customers. So we looked around and we said, what are the good opportunities to combine our passions into a business? And we said, well, we love vehicles and we love getting outdoors and we love camping. We've had a number of vans and trucks along the way too. And we said, let's look at camper vans. It seems like a good opportunity to combine our passion and bring a new product to market. We kind of took a clean sheet at this and we think we kind of came up with some innovative solutions.
I love that Brian decided to go into business with his wife in order to start this up. They both had a really strong manufacturing background. In fact, they leaned into their strengths to determine what's going to be best for them to be able to move forward. They've got a passion that they really want to pursue. They're taking all their combined experience and energy and going to pour it in to building this business. So I want you to listen to this next segment about how they take that energy and they start transforming it into a business.
We both had long careers, but we also really love to create. And so we've created some great products along the way, but we really wanted to create our own business, right? We've had good experiences, but we said, we really want to create something that's really our own. And it was just kind of a natural extension to not only create products, but to create a company to go with that. So, we've actually been planning this for quite a long time. When I finally cleaned out my desk at my old job, I realized that I had training materials on being an entrepreneur from like 2002. So it's been a passion of ours for a long time, and we really had our heart set on it. And we had kind of thought about a couple different ideas along the way, but none of them quite seemed right. And then the time came here, and we just said, this is something we can really get behind because we have a lot of passion for it, which is really kind of one of the keys to carry it through the struggles and the dark times. So we said, all right, this is going to be it.
This is it. How many of us, when we finally found that one right idea, knew that this is the one? There are lots of us out there like us. For Brian and his wife, it was really around this camper van idea. I want to highlight something though. We talked about passion before, and that's critical, and that's a marker that oftentimes shows up. I'm going to push a little bit further and say this was a purpose. Like he knew all these things had come together at this time for this reason, and they were both ready for it. I just don't think that happens by chance. I think there's a purpose behind that, and he's fulfilling his purpose in doing that. And I think it's amazing. So when you see that passion, sometimes passion can wane, but that purpose, I do believe, will keep you going when things get dark in the middle of the night. Because those of us who have been in business know there are going to be some dark nights of the soul that we really need to check out. So Brian's going to go on to share his experience that being successful in business and as a business owner goes beyond the business and beyond the product. This is really mind blowing. So listen up.
So we had that passion, but we were kind of the mindset. You need to have that great idea, that $1 million idea to quit the job and then go take a risk on something like that. And it was actually part of the training that I was in that said, it's less about the idea and more about the person running the idea, if you will. And the phrase was, it's more about the jockey than the horse. And we thought about it and we said, we have all this experience, we have all this passion. We really think we could do it. I mean, we think we've got a good idea, but maybe we shouldn't just fully hang our hat on that idea. I think that's another thing that I picked up through coaching along the way here is that your idea is going to evolve along the way, right? So you may jump here, but being an entrepreneur is kind of not only having that vision downfield of where you want to go, but also the sideways. There's what's maybe an adjacent opportunity that might make you want to pivot along the way.
I love that. It's more about the jockey than the horse. It's so true. So many of us feel like, hey, my product is so amazing. My service is so amazing. That's the thing that sells. In fact, we tend to lead that with our story, with our tell, and we're talking to potential customers, et cetera. But how often is it that it's actually the strategic decision, understanding what the whole landscape looks like, deciding, do we go left? Do we go right? What are we going to do here in order to make the next right step? That, in fact, is even more important. Yes, you need to have an amazing product or service, but you need to build the other things around it. That's really a place when Milwaukee Small Business Coach starts thinking about how can we help entrepreneurs. We don't help you become great at what you're already doing. You need to be great at your skill, craft, or trade. It's those other pieces around that, being able to see the field better, being able to integrate that information, being able to adjust what you do to be able to achieve the results you want so you can stop spinning your wheels and turn hard work into hard cash. Such an essential principle. And I want everyone to step back and take a look. Step back from your product, which are beautiful. Step back from the services, which are amazing, and figure out what else is going on in my business for me to get to the next level and be more successful. What else do I need to look at? Look, ultimately, we want to help our clients make the right, best next decision so that they can be the best jockey they can for the horse that they're riding. All right. So here comes the tough part. That idea has been rattling around. We know it maybe is there. We even think it may fulfill our purpose. When is the right time to get going? Brian's going to talk about the journey he and his wife went on when they finally knew this is it. It's time to go. Let's listen.
One of the big choices and one of the things that had delayed us for a long time was when to go, when to quit. And I've been working on an idea for quite a while in my spare time, if you will. Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they say, get as far as you can while you still have the day job before you make that leap. And I was doing that as much as I could, but the day job commanded a lot of time, both during the day and also at night. And what I found is I could probably only get in 4 hours a week on the idea, with family as well. And we talked about it and we said, what's really getting in the way is this time, right? And so if one of us quits our job, then you can put 10 times more effort into it, 15 times more effort, get a lot farther, a lot faster. And that meant then also going down one income in the family. And so some of the other choices are, what are we going to adjust in our family life to make that work? So shifting some of the responsibility, shifting some of the funding around, if you will, tightening our belts for a period of time to make sure that we could go with this, that we wouldn't more or less put ourselves in a cash flow crunch. So those were some of the big decisions along the way. That was really the biggest for me is when do you stay and when do you go? And it had just kind of become time and we thought we were ready.
When do you stay and when do you go? I told you there were going to be some gems in this podcast. That's really great thinking, Brian. Did you catch that he and his wife counted not only the cost of making the change, but the cost of not making a change? They figured out that if Brian didn't leave his job and start investing in this full time, that they weren't going to be able to achieve the goals they want to do. It's always a delicate balance. What are we going to take on? What are we going to offload? What are we going to delegate? What are we going to keep ourselves? Where does the cost profile go? It's something you really have to look at carefully. You've got to understand where your gifts, your skills are, your interest, your energy, where that gets poured in. You got to understand where your cash flow is at. You got to understand what the opportunities are. There's a lot that goes into this, folks, but it's possible to figure it out. But you got to look at more than one side. Don't get blinded by looking one direction and have an optimism bias. I want you to really count the cost both ways and then make an informed decision. That's how some of the best business owners end up being super successful. All right, Brian goes on to talk about a topic that I preach about over and over at Milwaukee Small Business Coach, customer discovery. But don't take it from me. Let's listen to Brian as he goes on his journey, finding out what the customers really want.
We said, but we really need to understand this market a little bit more. How can we figure that out? So we talked to a lot of people, friends of ours, acquaintances. We also threw it out to social groups and just said, hey, who's interested in buying a camper van? What are you looking for? Who has bought a camper van and why did you buy it? What do you like about it? What's your favorite feature? What don't you like about it? And then we also talked, well, they bought something else. So we got some good information from that. And then we watched, right? So we went and did a bunch of camping. We watched how people use them. And, we got on the internet forums and read some trade magazines, stuff like that. How does all that research result in a solution or a problem to be solved? Well, we heard three things and we identified a fourth thing. So what we heard is you spend a lot of time driving. So it's got to be great to drive. It's got to see a certain number of people. You got to be able to plug in tablets and whatever. It's the second most time you spend into sleeping, right? So it's got to be a really great sleeping experience. So, 2 full-size beds and thick mattresses and stuff like that. And then you got to be able to relax in it. Once you get to the campsite, you want a kitchenette and you want to cook. And those three things were really kind of things kind of everybody was doing that were kind of the obvious problems to solve. But I think the combination of talking to people and observing and doing it ourselves, we realized that there was like a fourth opportunity there, and that campers are really great when you're camping in them, but they're really a dedicated vehicle. And once you're done camping 2, 3 weeks out of the year, they're just sitting in your driveway, and they tend to be fairly expensive. So you're paying on them 11 months out of the year, maybe even paying to store them, and that's maybe not a great experience. And so we said, okay, how can we fix that problem, right? We saw an opportunity that we don't think other people saw. And we said, maybe if we make this van configurable, where it does those first three things really good, but then everything can kind of move out of the way and it becomes a cargo van again, you can use it more, right? It's not just a camper van. It does all those camping things really great, but you push the beds out of the way and the seats out of the way, and suddenly you have this big open space in the back with tracks in the bottom to bolt stuff down. And you can fit a bicycle in there or a motorcycle in there or a kayak, or you could go to Home Depot or you could go to IKEA and you can, flat pack furniture in the back. And suddenly it becomes a vehicle you can use all the time. And suddenly the value of that investment increases, right? It's not just something you use 2, 3 weeks a year. It's something that you use all the time. And so kind of using that as inspiration then too, we called our model the Orion 365, as in you can use it every day.
All right, folks, if you think the customer discovery is just checking off a box, just doing something that your coach or your team told you that you need to get done, listen again to what Brian just said. He knew the three items that people were going to want, but they stumbled upon a fourth unmet need that really could provide the differentiator and the unique value in the products he's bringing to the table. In his case, it was that this item, which is a fairly large expense in order to buy this camper van, sits in the driveway most of the year because the people aren't necessarily camping in it all the time. Well, what if they could figure out how to make it configurable so that it is usable 365, thus born the Orion 365? What a cool idea. When's the last time you went out and talked to potential customers, not to do a sales pitch, but to just find out, what do you need? What's missing? What is the gap? What problems do you really need to have solved? Where are your struggles? What's keeping you up at night? By asking some of these questions and listening carefully to the answers and using their word, oftentimes we can get some insights that are essential in figuring out what is the service or product we need to unlock in order to really be successful. Brian goes on to make a really cool analogy when I ask him about how he pursues his information in order to stay sharp in his industry. Take a listen.
And so there's all these little pieces of information, these little nuggets that you get from all different areas. And you kind of put those together, kind of like a pointillism, and create a picture, if you will, of what's going on. And that helps direct you downstream. And, that as well as staying in tune with, just world events in general, right? So you're looking at what's happening right here, but, is there something else bigger in the world that's going to cause things to shift? So you always got to kind of have that, downstream, downfield vision to be looking for problems so that you can react to or adjust before they become something that impacts your business.
Pointillism. Everyone remembers that from art class, right? I didn't. But when we look up the definition, it's when you do all these little dots in order to form a picture. And up close, it doesn't really look like anything. But when you step back and get the perspective, all of a sudden an image comes into view. That's what Brian's doing with his nuggets of information and wisdom as he continues to get them, knowing that sometimes we have to step back and see the broader field. This is a spot that having other people around you support you can be super helpful. It is really hard when we're in the midst of doing all the things that we do all the time to be able to lift our chin up, scan around, and say, that's interesting. So find a time for you, take a step back and see how that image is coming together. Well, like you, I can't do all this alone. I want to thank Chris Crane for doing our music on both the intro and the outro. And I'm going to thank my amazing wife, Kate, for doing all the editing to bring these snips and highlights together for you. If you like what you're listening to, I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, share, and go ahead and comment. So again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Entrepreneur Encounters. I'm Brent Halfwasson, Milwaukee Small Business Coach, and I want to invite Chris to take us out. Ready to take